Hi, everyone, and welcome to our live Q&A about the Mont Blanc Summit trip. I'm so excited to have you guys. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Just a very quick one before we get started. Please make sure that your microphones and your cameras remain off. As you have questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat box, and we'll go through them one by one. And we'll be sorry, just fixing this right. And we'll be going through them one by one. But at the very beginning, what we'll do is we'll just be starting with a quick overview of the trip so that everybody has an idea. We'll be kind of going through the itinerary day by day so that you have a proper overview of everything that's happening. And then we'll go straight to questions. When you want to drop your questions, feel free to use the chat box. You can either send it directly to me or to Life Happens Outdoors. I'm Rami, by the way, team leader on this trip. Or you can drop it into the general chat, and I'll get to them one by one at the end. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to dive right into it. Hopefully the share screen will work. And there it is, Mont Blanc climb with training. Look, the Mont Blanc is a very special place for me personally. I grew up in these mountains, so this is literally my backyard, and I love taking people to this region. It's really one of the most spectacular places on the planet. The Mont Blanc itself is actually an interesting place because it's not only is it the name of the summit of the mountain, but it's also the name of the massif. And the massif is a collection of mountains that are unobstructed by a valley. So it's kind of like one contiguous mountain range. And the massif itself sits in 3 countries. That's France, Switzerland, and Italy. And the summit of the Mont Blanc itself is actually between France and Italy. So it's actually a really, really cool place to be because when you're at the top, you're actually kind of half in, half out of both countries, which is always fun. A couple of things before we get started. There's no profile of person who joins us on the Mont Blanc. Actually, we've had people from everywhere, every shape, every size, literally from all over the world. And the thing that everybody kind of shares in common with us, with one another and with us, is that they're first timers. So everybody who's ever been with us to the Mont Blanc has actually put on crampons for the very first time with us during this trip. And that's something that's really cool. And so we've had people from Nepal, we've had people from Kuwait, we've had people from Armenia, we've had people literally join us from everywhere. And they've all had spectacular experiences. I know one of the first things that people always ask themselves before they even think about, what the daily grind is so where am I going to sleep? And I can tell you right away that accommodation is like probably the most important thing to us as well, because we sleep there too, right? And I'll be sleeping there as well. So we actually really do invest in where it is that we sleep. And this is actually a couple of pictures of the accommodation that we use in Chamonix. So we like it to be fun. We like it to be comfortable. There's a certain standard that everybody, that we expect, but as well, we're all about having fun. In the mountains, the lodges are also way better than you would imagine. They're much more comfortable, but of course it's mountain lodging at the end of the day. The good thing about this trip is that we spend a lot of time in Chamonix. So you have a lot of time spent at our accommodation in Chamonix and a lot of time to recover as well. Okay, Mont Blanc. So we are actually looking at the Mont Blanc right now. And like I said, it's a collection of mountains, but the highest one, the highest pinnacle at the very back, or it's not even a pinnacle, it's more like a dome, is the actual Mont Blanc summit itself. And you can actually see the route that we take to the summit, which comes up from the right side of the mountain. It's very spectacular. It's very big. One of the beautiful things about the Mont Blanc is that it's right above the town of Chamonix. So Chamonix is quite low down in terms of alpine towns. It's around 800 meters in altitude, and the Mont Blanc summit is 4,800 meters. So you literally have 4 vertical kilometers looking up from the town to see this most spectacular sight. So here's a little bit of just to have a conceptual idea of where everything is, and kind of how this trip runs, because it's not linear. So like a lot of trips, if you're coming off something, say like Elbrus or maybe Kilimanjaro, or one day leads to the next day, leads to the next day, leads to the next day. Here it isn't linear. We start off by doing our training up in the mountains. We go back down to Chamonix, and then we go back up to do our another day of training and a training summit. Go back down to Chamonix. Then we have a day in Chamonix for training, and then we go up to the Mont Blanc. So it's so the different parts of the itinerary are run in different ways, and we're going to kind of go through that right now. So first thing is first, we run an airport to airport like itinerary. So we'll be picking you up from Geneva Airport and bringing you to Chamonix, and we will end our trip together by dropping you off at Geneva Airport again. So the actual first day with us is going to be in Chamonix, in Geneva Airport. We'll pick you up, and then we have our first night together. There's always a nice welcome dinner, and then the next day we get started. And these are just spectacular shots. Of course, we also do the photography. So these are all LHO original pictures from our own trips. And that's actually the Mont Blanc in the background over there. So it gives you an idea of just how grand this place is. Okay, so day one, after you guys have arrived, we spent our first night. We will rent the gear that you guys need to rent if you don't have everything already. And then we'll be taking the mountain train up to the Mer de Glace. Mer de Glace is literally what it says on the tin in French. It's a sea of ice. And this is where we're going to be putting on crampons for the very first time in order to start the training. Our training starts very basic. Look, it's very important when you're coming at it, especially if you're coming off other mountains that you've done before, where a lot of the training is kind of focused on kind of what happens if the worst happens. Our training is focused on making sure that the worst never happens. So rather than teach you how to self-arrest with the ice axe, which I'll tell you a story about that later. But rather than do that, we make sure that you learn how to use your crampons, your ice axe, and your tools so that you actually never take a slide, because that's infinitely more important than the one-off time that you may ever take a slide, which should be never if you really hone these skills. So very important for us. We run a very tight guide ratio. So in the beginning, of course, there are more people per guide, but once we get to the Mont Blanc, it's going to be 2 to 1. So it really becomes focused on you and your skills. And here's one of our IFMGA certified mountain guides, Greg, who is actually making sure that the ladies on the trip are understanding the concept of having the entire crampon on the ice and pushing it to the limit so that we understand what that limit is. We go back down to Chamonix at the end of that day. We would have gotten the basics of everything, and then we'll be heading up to the Albert Premier hut the following day. So we sleep in Chamonix, so back to the hotel, and then the following day we go up to Albert Premier hut. It's a nice trek, and then once we get there, we're going to have the opportunity to do a training again, and then we're going to be heading up to the Aiguille du Tour on the following day. So the trail up to Albert Premier is spectacular. You see the Glacier du Tour over there in the background, which is just like, it blows your mind. It just literally blows your mind. And the Aiguille Verte over there in the background as well is spectacular. This is a view, and you see it in my background as well. This is the view from the mountain hut. So very first time we spent a night on the mountain together, this is going to be your view. It's insane. So we spend the night at the mountain hut. It's a great experience. And then we'll wake up super early and we'll head to Aiguille du Tour, which is our training summit. The Aiguille du Tour is actually, it's around 3,800 meters, technically more challenging than the Mont Blanc because it has a wider variety of technical requirements in order to summit. So there's a bit of rock, there's a little bit of glacier traverse, there's a bit of steep sections, but of course, lower down in altitude. So the grade kind of challenges itself because it's really altitude that makes it a little bit more challenging on the Mont Blanc. So we do go for something technically more challenging at lower altitude so that we feel more comfortable as we're making our way up to the Mont Blanc at a higher altitude. And this is actually close to the summit of Aiguille du Tour. That's Philippe, one of our IFMGA certified mountain guides, making his way down. And you can see in the distance all the way the Grand Combin, which is another one of these spectacular 4,000 meter massifs in the Alps. Oops, I think I went a little bit far there. Let me go back and show you the summit of Aiguille du Tour, which is there. And of course, you see all the way in the background, the big, beautiful white mountain on the far right. That is actually the Mont Blanc. And you can actually see the perfect summit route up that snow arête that goes up to the top is actually our route to the summit. Right. So then we head back down to Chamonix. In Chamonix, it's all about relaxing. We're going to spend 2 nights in Chamonix, and this is designed for us to relax. We're going to learn some rope skills in the valley, do some rock climbing in the valley, not push ourselves too hard because we actually want to kind of relax a little bit, gather our strength now that we've been acclimatized and we've been up to higher altitude, up to the higher altitude environment. Want to give our body that chance to recover before we make our way to the following day. So we're going to spend 2 nights in Chamonix, and then we're going to make our attempt or the beginning of our ascent up the Mont Blanc. And this part is linear. So we're going to begin by walking to the Bellevue cable and then taking it up, take a short train ride to Nid d'Aigle, which you can see is the second orange circle. And then we're going to start trekking up to the Tétreus hut, which is where we're going to spend our first night on our way up to the summit of the Mont Blanc. This is a picture of us actually on our way up to the Tétreus hut. And you can see the phenomenal Bionassi Glacier behind us, which is on our right-hand side. This is a view from the Tétreus hut. Like, it just blows your mind. And here, this is the Tétreus base camp. So sometimes we stay here, sometimes we stay in the hut, depending on the situation. And yeah, like I said, it's just the views here. Like, I don't even have to say anything. I just leave it and you guys can see it. It's really something. Yeah. And this is, you can see that this would be our route up to for the following day. So you're actually looking up at the Goûter hut, and you can actually see the Goûter hut sitting at the very top of that rocky spur on the left-hand side. It's like a Bond villain's lair. It's like this dome structure, the circular structure that sits right on the edge of the cliff. We're going to be climbing up the Grand Couloir, which sits right beneath it. And then once we get up there, that'll be the start of the glacier ascent to the summit of the Mont Blanc. Right. So from Tétreus, we're going to go to the summit of the Mont Blanc and then down to the Goûter hut. And we're going to spend the night in the Goûter hut. So we're going to have a big ascent, but then we're going to have a half descent. So that gives us a chance to recover on the way down, and also allows us as a bit more to be a bit more liberal with time on our way up to the summit of the mountain. So this is a picture of kind of just to the side of the Grand Couloir. It's quite spectacular. This is us actually ascending the Grand Couloir. This is the only section of the trail where we would actually need to use our hands. So you could see the ice axe is tucked in the backpack over there. You don't actually need it at this point. You need your hands to be free in order to be able to manipulate a little bit on the rocks. Once we get to the last section, we have a short glacier traverse to the Goûter hut, where we often take a little bit of a break in order for us to recover. Maybe sometimes we even get something hot to eat. And then we start to make our way up from the Goûter hut to the summit, past the moguls, past the Dôme de Goûter, which is actually another 4,000 meter summit in its own right. So you're actually going to do 2 4,000 meter summits on your way up to the Mont Blanc. And then we go up, skipped on the best picture there. We're going to go up the moguls, and this is actually a picture that I took on our last trip, where our team was going up the third mogul, and I'm actually not using a drone. I'm actually on top of the second mogul. A mogul is basically like a false summit, so it goes up and then it goes down. So I'm on the upper part behind them. I'm about to go down and go up again. And this is what characterizes the last section of the Mont Blanc. You've got 5 moguls before you get to the top. And then, yeah, so this gives you kind of a bigger conceptual idea. Of course, here I've kind of turned around and I'm looking behind myself on the moguls. And this is the summit of the Mont Blanc. It's quite, the last little bit is quite a narrow ridge, very navigable. You just have to be sure-footed and listen to your guides. Your guides know what they're doing. You've got right here, to the right-hand side, you've got France, and to the left-hand side, you've got Italy. So it's really something special. And there we are on the summit, me with my photograph, with my camera. I'll basically be jumping between all the rope parties that are going up to the summit to try and snap the best possible photos of you guys while you're doing this, because you can't do something this awesome and not have something epic to show for it. And then finally, we'll spend the night in the Gute hut on the way down, and then the following day we'll wake up early, trek down to Tetrus, so go down the Grand Couloir, and then to Nidegg, and then catch the train in Nidegg back down to Chamonix. Couple of things about gear, very quickly. Of course, we have that night in Chamonix, we'll have dinner, and then the following day we will be taking you guys back to the airport or wherever. If you're going to Geneva, we'll drop you off anywhere in Geneva as well. That's perfectly fine. A couple of things about gear. So for those of us who've ever been to things like Kilimanjaro or anywhere else that is basically requires layering. So that's things like fleece, down jackets, etc. You'll probably have most of what you need for this trip. This gear list can actually be found in the guidebook for the Mont Blanc summit. You can download the guidebook from the website, or you can we'll drop the guidebook at the end of this session to everybody who's in the session, so that you guys will have that available for you. The only thing that I would say that you should kind of not necessarily buy unless you've used them before is like things like the mountaineering boots, the crampons. Those things, it's better to rent the first time, and we can rent those for you easily in Chamonix. And it's better to do it that way, so that you get a feel for what works for your foot, what doesn't. Because if you go and you buy on your own without actually knowing what it is that you're buying, because when you get into the technical boots, they actually become quite technical, and you wouldn't know the difference between them unless you had somebody there to explain. So it's best to rent them to have a better idea, so that later on you can buy them. A lot of our team members, what they do is they rent on the first trip, and then if they decide that mountaineering is for them and they want to keep going, we'll, at the end of the trip, we'll go to the stores and we'll buy them for whatever it is that they want to do later on. It's also because different boots are good for different things that you want to do. So we'd say, if you wanted to do something like more technical, you want to go down the rock route, you want to go down bigger glaciers, you want to go up to higher altitude, those are different boots that you need. So better to rent. You don't want to be showing up to the Mont Blanc with mountain boots for 8,000 meter mountains. Everybody's going to look. If you have, it's okay, but just saying. So yeah, everything in technical gear that has to do with the actual climbing. So that's your harness, your ice axe, your helmet, your trekking boot, your mountaineering boots, and your crampons. We can get, but everything else you should get as well. So all the layers that you need, all the clothes that you need, and if you have any questions at all, if there's anything that you don't understand, reach out to us. We also provide you with a guide to gear and clothing, so it explains every single item in the gear list, so that you don't walk into the store like a sitting duck, ready to be upsold on everything. Finally, and this is always this is a little fun one for us. We've got a little giveaway going on for our trips at the end of. We've got 2 trips happening, one at the end of August and one at the beginning of September. And if you guys want to do that, and you're on the edge and you're thinking, should I, shouldn't I? Hopefully this will help. If you book before the 15th of July, we'll give you 150 euros off. So go for it. And anyway, we'll drop you an email with the link. But don't wait too long, guys, because we have 3 spaces left on this trip on both of them, right? So we have very limited numbers because, like I said, it's 2-to-1 on the rope, 2-to-1 guide ratio. So make sure that if you are interested, go for it as soon as possible. And there you have it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and pull myself up. So this is basically the Mont Blanc summit in a nutshell. It's one of the most spectacular trips, guys. Really, if you're thinking, I want to go into mountaineering, this is definitely something that it's a great first step. And it's a great first step because the way that we run it with the training involved, so you do the training as part of the itinerary, and our focus on you actually learning rather than just summit bagging and just kind of being pulled up the mountain. That's not our style. We actually want you to learn, and this is a great environment to do it, because unlike going up to higher altitude mountains, here you don't actually have to contend with the high altitude. You actually, because we're in relative relatively low altitude, especially when it comes to the training elements. I mean, the Mer de Glace is below 2000. So we're actually training in very low altitude where you're fully there, your energy is fully charged, and we're able to really get the most out of where we are. And at the same time, we're able to kind of push to a higher altitude environment. But to put it into perspective, especially for those of you who've been to Kilimanjaro, the summit of the Mont Blanc is it's barely higher than Lava Tower. So it also gives us that opportunity to go for something super technical, but without having that big exposure that in a lot of places in the world that have other big mountains, you have to get into really high altitude before you're able to actually get on the glacier. Like in Nepal, you have to be at 4,000 to get on the glacier. Here, the glacier starts as low as 1,800. So we really get to have a great technical experience, but in lower altitude. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them. And yeah, so I'm gonna go straight into them. And you can direct message them to me, or you can message them to, or you can message it into the group. That's perfectly fine for me. So. I've got a question about accommodation. The first question, So accommodation like I said, in Chamonix, we've got amazing accommodation. The place is wonderful. I stay there for the whole season, so I really love it. And you guys will be very pleasantly surprised by it. In the mountains, it's mountain huts, right? And the mountain huts in the Alps, and specifically around the Mont Blanc, are much more accommodating. So the facilities are much more advanced than most places in the world. So you can imagine there's a common room, there is a restaurant area, the beds are bunk beds. They're very well kept. There are COVID procedures in place, which we'll share with you, that make sure that everything is sanitized and ready to receive us. The mountain huts are running limited capacities as well. So this is also due to COVID. The actual huts are they're nice and warm. So it's not like if you've been to tea houses in Nepal where you go into the room and you freeze yourself to sleep. You don't have that over here. So it is it's much more advanced in terms of comfort and amenities. And especially around the Mont Blanc area, and especially with the huts that we're going to be staying in. One more thing to say about mountain accommodation: there is no gender segregation in the mountains. For those of us who are a little bit concerned about that, so we're just going to have to make our peace with the idea that it's bunk beds. We're all in one room, but we're dressed in head to toe in gear, so it's a very unflattering one room. Let's put it that way. I hope that answers the question about accommodation. But in Chamonix, where we're going to be spending the majority of the nights, it's much more comfortable and a great place to recover. The town itself is wonderful, by the way. I can't wait to actually show you guys the town, because it's the capital of mountaineering, and it's great. Right. Great. So, question about first timers. Yes, about first timers. Can I do this if I'm a first timer? The answer is yes, you can. We include the training as part of this experience, so you absolutely don't need to worry about not having any technical skills. That's absolutely fine. What I would say though is it's good to understand, set your expectations and understand where it is that you're going. This is not Kilimanjaro. So there are times where we do have to follow instructions when they're being instructed. So for example, if we're walking on the glacier and the guide determines that it's important for us to move a little bit faster across this section, we have to move a little bit faster. We cannot stop and say, hey, pole, we got to slow down. Like that's what they taught me on Kilimanjaro. It's like, no, when you're on a dry trail, you can do whatever you like. Once you're on the glacier and once you're inside the alpine environment, then you have to do what the mountain wants. And if the mountain needs you to move fast now, you got to move fast now. And if the mountain enables you to go slow, we go slow. But we got to get away from this idea that I can stop whenever I want and I'm here to, take pictures and enjoy myself. It's like, no, when we're crossing a glacier field and the bridges are unstable, you've got to do exactly what the guide says. When we're crossing the Grand Couloir to go up to the Mont Blanc, you've got to do exactly what the guide says. And if you don't feel capable of doing that, or if you during the training feel that you'd rather this is that, or the guide feels that this might not be possible for you, that's okay. That's part of the experience. Not everybody's going to reach the top, and not everybody's going to even be able to attempt the top based on as they advance through the skills throughout this itinerary. But if you're asking the question, can a first timer give this a real honest shot? The answer is absolutely yes. First time I came to the Mont Blanc, I was a first timer. So absolutely. And most people who join us are first timers as well. And most people do go, do very well with us. I hope that answers the question. Do you need sleeping bags? Right. So at the moment, traditionally we don't need sleeping bags because we've always, you have linens that are provided for you at the mountain huts. However, because of COVID, the rules have changed, and a light sleeping bag will be necessary. You may not need it. If you don't want to get one, that's okay. We've got some available in Chamonix that we can provide you with. But if you want to bring your own, by all means do. It doesn't have to be a heavy sleeping bag. Something that's good for kind of 0 or above 0, slightly like 5 or 10 is also fine, because we're going to be using them indoors. So and in a heated environment. So you're not going to. It's not like Kilimanjaro where you're going to be in your tent and freezing in a -20 bag. It's not like that. So. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. You will need to have a small sleeping bag. If you don't want to buy one, we'll provide it. It's okay. We've got our stuff over there. But if you want to have your own, which is always recommended, it's always good to sleep in your own thing. You do need to get one now because of the COVID protocols. Is it okay to bring bag rated extreme? I think the one I have is -25. It might be overkill for this trip, because like I said, the huts are very, very warm. So having a -25, you're going to be very, very hot in there. And you also have to carry it. We don't have porters on the Mont Blanc. So you actually have to carry, and the more, the more fills, so the more the sleeping bag is built for the colder temperature, then the heavier it's going to be, the bigger it's going to be, the more annoying it's going to be to carry. Now, good thing is you don't have to take it up to the summit, but you do have to get it to the mountain hut itself. So it's just going to be a bit of a bulk to carry it, especially because we don't recommend you carry more than a 30-liter backpack. So I would invest in something a little bit smaller if I were you. But like I said, if you're not looking to buy something new, we can provide you with one. It's no issue. How fit do I need to be? Ooh, this question. Okay. You need to be comfortable with yourself. On the summit of the Mont Blanc, and if I showed you those first 3 profiles at the very beginning of this presentation, no one person looks a particular shape or a particular size or has particular abs or doesn't have particular abs, to be able to do this. You, like our own, Philippe, who I just showed you a picture of, has got a wonderful wine belly, even though he's one of the strongest climbers that we have. So it really comes down to yourself. You need to ask yourself, this is the Mont Blanc, and this is a big mountain, and this is a technical mountain. And knowing what I know now, am I comfortable with myself to put myself through it? If the answer is yes, fantastic, because your mind will govern the way that this thing progresses. And if you're confident in your mind, really your body will do whatever you say. If the answer is I'm not sure, reach out to us individually. Like call, send us an email or drop us a WhatsApp or request a one-on-one with me, and we'll answer you individually and understand your circumstances, understand where you are, and then we'll help you plot a way forward if we feel that there's something that needs to happen. Right? And if the answer is no, then let's push this to another time. Let's also reach out to us, and let's plot a journey that will make this possible for you in the very near future. But the key element is your mind has to be confident that your body can do it. And that means different things to different people. For some people, that means I need to be able to, lift a glacier with one arm. And for other people, that means, I'm good. I'm doing my 10,000 steps per day, every 3-4 days. And I feel very good about that. And I think I can go for this. Equally fine to give this an honest shot, but you have to be in your mind, you have to feel like, okay, I want to give this a try. If we feel that that you may be putting yourself at risk during the itinerary, don't worry. We're not shy. We're not going to let you put yourself or us at risk, right? So we will tell you. Okay, next question. Do we carry our duffel bags to the mountain huts? No, there are no duffel bags. Right. Okay, let me start from here. You need to have a 30-liter backpack. You're keeping in mind that we never spend more than one night at any mountain hut. So when we're going when we're doing the first summit, which is the summit of Aiguille de Tours, we spend one night in the Albert Premier. So everything that you need, including your technical gear, should fit in a 30-liter backpack. Okay, a 30-liter backpack should fit your water, should fit your snack for the day that we'll provide you, your little snack pack, your extra layers, and your technical gear, and your toothbrush, and whatever the things that you need for overnighting. You will not the stuff that we use for overnighting, we will not take to the summit. So when we're going to Albert Premier, you'll leave your toothbrush, you'll leave your sleeping bag, you'll leave your liners, whatever it is that you don't need to actually go to the summit. And then when we come back down, we'll collect those and go back down. So you don't actually need to carry a duffel bag. Or because you don't need the contents of a duffel bag for one night on the mountain. When we go to the Mont Blanc, it's 2 nights on the mountain, 1 night in Tête Rousse and 1 night in Goûter. Keeping in mind that the trek from Nid d'Aigle to Tête Rousse is like 3 hours. It's very, very short. So you're not even going to have enough time to sweat and, feel like you need to change what you're already wearing. So we'd recommend just whatever you're wearing will be what you'll be wearing for those 2 days. What you'll have extra are the extra layers that you need for the summit, and of course your technical gear as well. But we are going to help you picking the gear that you need for every day. So don't worry about it. We know that it's very tough to conceptualize this idea of fitting everything in a 30-liter backpack. But I've got a trip happening next week from Chamonix to Zermatt where I've got 7 days without going anywhere near a road or near Chamonix. We're in the mountain huts, and 7 days with a 30-liter backpack. So if I can do 7 days, you can do 1. Don't worry about that. So I hope that answers your question. No duffel bags to the mountain huts, just your backpack. The duffel bags or your suitcases or whatever you're putting your gear in that you don't need for that particular day or that particular section of the itinerary will stay at the hotel in the storage room. Okay, next question. How many axes do we need? Is the cork axes too technical for Mont Blanc? Right, you need 1 axe. It's a mountaineer's ice axe, which is one that has a slight kink. It can be straight or have a slight kink in it. It's not the one with the handles, right? The one with the handles is overkill. That is for ice climbing when you're double ice axing, or if you're doing a very, very hard grade, way beyond the Mont Blanc. So we're literally talking about 6 grades higher than the Mont Blanc on this route, to be able to actually need the double ice axes. Double ice axes are mostly for ice climbing and for very hard grades. And for very hard grades when we're doing kind of much steeper faces. For the Mont Blanc, it's 1 ice axe. It's called a mountaineer's ice axe. It's got a slight. It's just an axe with the pole. It's got a sharp a stabbing thing at the very bottom, a blade at the very bottom of it. So you're able to stab the glacier, holding it from the head, or also to hit it into the glacier. I think I've got a picture of it, actually. I'm going to just share my screen to drive this point home in case you're actually considering buying. I'll just pull that up so that you can see what that looks like very quickly. It was you get to review the itinerary as we're doing this. Right. You can see here. So it's like you see in the hands of both Greg and Rand over here. It's a straight axe with a sharp blade at the bottom, and that one that you can hold from the top. You don't need anything with handles. That will not work for you on this. So it's not that this is like an an easy level 1 and then you're eventually going to buy the harder level 1. It's not like that. You need to buy what you need for this. So when I'm climbing this, I'm using my straight axe. When I'm doing something different, I may be using my double axes or other things that I might find more appropriate for what it is that I'm doing. But for now, it's this. And if you're in any doubt about which one to buy, I would say just don't buy at all, and we'll help you get the right thing in Chamonix. And plus in Chamonix for these things, like you have much more variety than kind of being outside town. So we'll take you shopping as well. We love to go shopping for gear. It's part of our thing, right? Question: will we need a PCR test to pass from Geneva to Chamonix since we're moving from Switzerland to France? The answer to that is, if you are arriving to Switzerland and you are crossing directly you're transiting from Switzerland straight into France, then you do not require anything other than what the French government requires of you when entering France. So when you get to the Swiss border guards, they're going to ask you if you're going to Geneva or are you going anywhere else. If you tell them that you're going directly to France, which presumably you will be, then you do not need to present anything other than what you need to enter France, as if you're entering France for the first time. So you'll need the PCR that you need. If you're required a PCR in order to travel, then you need to have that. It'll be the same one that applies at the border between Geneva and between Switzerland and France. If the Swiss rules are different in any way to the French rules at the time of your entry, it's the French rules that will apply to you. As of right now, if you are coming from a green list country, you don't need a PCR and you can enter. If you're double vaccinated, you don't need a PCR. If you are not double vaccinated, you require a PCR to enter. If you're coming from an orange list country, which the vast majority of us will be, you need to be double vaccinated, and yes, you need to be double vaccinated, and you need a PCR to enter, and that'll be it. So if you're coming from a red list country, you got to quarantine. So I don't think you'll be coming, at least for now. This is the rule as it is right now. And like I said, the rules are changing constantly. So please make sure that you get your latest information from the French authorities, not from this video, because it's constantly changing. But as of last month, it's been changing progressively for the better for us. So that's great news. What happens if the weather doesn't allow us to climb the Mont Blanc? Good question. We are in the Alps at the end of the day, and this is alpinism, and the mountain doesn't care if we're on an itinerary or not. So two things can happen here. We basically, myself and the guides will make a decision. That decision might be to bring forward our summit day, because remember, we have one extra day of rest in Chamonix, and that also doubles as a summit window. So if we feel that might change things, we'll look to do that. That's our option one. Option two will be that we may decide that actually the weather forecast is relatively unreliable, or maybe it is reliable, but there's a window wide enough for us to give it an honest shot and do so safely. We may have, or we think that maybe the weather might change. That's an option. Option number three is we will go for another summit. Usually our traditional go-to mountain, if Mont Blanc is not possible, is the Gran Paradiso, which is a comparable summit just across the valley in Val d'Aoste in Italy, just through the Mont Blanc tunnel. So we'll make our decisions closer to the time, but we do have options, and you will have a spectacular experience. And remember that it's ultimately we're here to learn and to experience the mountain. I would say let's not worry about the summit until we have to worry about the summit, because we're not there yet. So these are hypotheticals that we may or may not have to contend with. And when we do, we'll make the option. We will choose the option that enables us to have an epic experience in a very safe manner. And that's the most important thing, is that we're safe and we're having fun. Right. Another question. I hope that answers that question. What happens if I'm the only person who can't climb the Mont Blanc and everybody else can? Good question. I'm sure that you are not going to be that person, but It can happen, and it can happen for a number of reasons. Maybe, you're not feeling up for it. Maybe decision comes from you. You're like, guys, I'm quite happy where I am and I'd rather do something else. Or there are a number of reasons why something like this could happen. Okay. And like I said, because this is a technical trip, you're required, as we progress through the itinerary, to be able to perform certain technical skills before we're able to say, okay, now we can go for the Mont Blanc. So for a number of reasons, this may happen. If it does happen, what we will do is we will decide together, myself and whoever is the person that can't climb, what it is that that person wants to do. If you don't want to climb at all and you want to just stay at the hotel in Chamonix and drink Aperol, the Aperol is great in Chamonix, by the way, best one outside Italy. Then absolutely have we'll that's perfectly acceptable, and it's fine. It's no issue. If, however, you want to actually don't want to have those days in Chamonix, you want to go out and do something, then you and I will decide together what is possible. It may be possible for you to do another summit with the guide. It may be possible for you to do something, maybe even to decide to come up to the huts of the Mont Blanc. If what you really want is actually, I'd rather just do a bit of trekking, but not actually go up onto the glacier. So it's possible to get you all the way up to Tête Rousse without even having to do any climbing, just trekking, and then you just spend the night, and the next day we come down and we pick you up on the way down. I mean, the options are infinite. It depends on you. If you want to climb, we'll come up with an alternative summit and get a guide out there with you as well. If you want to just trek, we can organize that for you. If you want to go down and spend it in Chamonix, we can do that too. Everything is possible. You just need to talk to us. We'll talk to each other. Anyway, these things don't just happen all of a sudden. We are there together. We're going to have we're going to have a back and forth throughout that week. So it's not going to suddenly be like, oh, John doesn't want to climb. It's like, no, we kind of saw that coming, and we've been deciding what we're going to do about that together. Okay. So don't worry about that. We're not a group that's going to make you climb no matter what. That's absolutely not us. And we're not going to push you if you don't want to. That's really, really important as well. It's like, we want you to do what makes you feel comfortable. Will I experience altitude sickness on this kind of trip? It's very, very, very rare. We would have, so the way that we've organized our itinerary, like I said at the very beginning, it's not a linear itinerary. So we go up to the higher altitude environment in order for us to do the training. We go back down to Chamonix, we recover. In that space of time, we're acclimatizing. We then go up to the Albert Premier hut, and then onwards to the Aiguille de Tours 3800, and then back down to Chamonix. So we would have pushed ourselves into the high altitude environment, triggered acclimatization, and then gone back down and recovered. So when we actually go to the Mont Blanc itself, we would have spent quite a few nights above 3000, and our bodies would have recovered well in Chamonix. And then we can give it a real shot without actually exposing ourselves to some of the more, if you like, I wouldn't even call them severe, some of the more less, I don't even know the word that I'm looking for, because I don't want to say severe symptoms. It's not severe symptoms. Even the ones I'm describing are not severe symptoms. They're just like the annoying symptoms. So it's, you may have a tiny bit of a headache at the Goûter hut on the way back down. Sometimes it happens. It's usually more dehydration related than altitude. So it's important to always drink water. You may feel a little bit more fatigued in the summit push than you normally would. But then also keeping in mind that you would have had 4 vertical kilometers of ascent behind you by that point. So but it's very unlikely. It's not like Kilimanjaro. On Kilimanjaro, you do get, altitude is a constant thing that we contend with. Here, absolutely not the case. And our exposure to high altitude is limited. It's literally going from the Goûter hut to the summit, back to the Goûter hut. That's really where we would be, in that zone where we'd be like, okay, we're above 4,000. This is where it starts to get a little bit more tricky. And we're there for such a limited time that it really doesn't, it's not one of those major factors. We're much more concerned with dehydration. We're much more concerned with your own health and well-being generally, your physical ability to recover in Chamonix and then going back out there, than we are with altitude, which is a little bit different from doing some of those other summits like Elbrus or Kilimanjaro. How long is the summit push? Oh, well, time. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? 30 more minutes. No, look, it depends. And because we split our teams up into 2-to-1s, the longest day on the summit for anybody is going to be me, because I'm the photographer of every team on the summit. So basically, if we have 3 rope parties on the mountain, which is usually our case, then you're going to have a rope. Naturally, there's going to be one rope party that's going to be a little bit faster than the others, and this is just the way that it is. So typically, I would say going from Tête Rousse to the Goûter hut should not take more than 3 hours at the absolute max. Remember, summit night is split into 2 parts. The first part is going from Tête Rousse hut to Goûter hut. So that should not take more than 3 hours. 3.5 if we're pushing it a little bit. Sometimes it can dip into 4, but typically 3 hours. Going from Goûter to the summit can take around 4.5 to 5 hours. This is, of course, on the conservative end of things. And then on the way back down to the Goûter hut, typically it can take around 2.5 hours. So it's a full day, is what I'm trying to say. It's a big day, but it's a lot of fun. It's different from Elbrus and Kilimanjaro, and I use those as examples because Kilimanjaro is what most of us have done, and Elbrus is usually what we do after Kilimanjaro, right? In the sense that you will not be, your eyes are not going to be glued to the floor as you walk, and it's just like this thing is just not ending, and it's very repetitive. No, you're going to constantly be doing something. So when you're going up the Grand Couloir, you're going to be putting your hands on the rocks. You're going to be looking at your feet. You're going to, your mind is going to be very occupied with what you're doing. And that passes the time a lot. When we're going up onto the glacier, same thing. There are some sections where it's a bit like switchbacky, kind of like going up Kilimanjaro. But then there are sections where you need to be very sure-footed. You need to be listening to instructions. You need to be understanding what it is that you're doing and communicating with the guide. So it's a lot more interactive, and so time passes a lot faster. But in terms of kind of setting expectations, I would say first section, put 4 hours in your mind. Second section, I would say to the summit, I would say put around 5 hours in your mind. So that's about 9 hours. So you're going to have about a 12-hour day, which is quite typical on a summit push like that. Of course, it could be much less than that as well. It depends on the pace of the group. Good thing is that you're not stuck with everybody. You're in a rope party of 2. So it really does become about your pace, which is great. So it gives you a bit more control. Hope that answers the question. Right. Another question. Can you recommend a physical preparation training program, or what we should concentrate on during training? Yes, absolutely. Okay. I would, the best thing, if you have to choose like a training regime that's great for targeting the things that you need for mountaineering in general, I would say nothing beats Pilates and yoga. And I know that sounds not what a lot of people want to hear, but slow, controlled movements that enable you to breathe deeply while leaving you in awkward positions is exactly what happens in mountaineering. You're in an awkward position, and you kind of might have to linger there for some time, and not letting your heart rate start to get away from you is a skill that is invaluable in mountaineering. So and the thing I feel personally that best mirrors this down at sea level would be something like Pilates, or whichever one that you want, or yoga as well. Now, in terms of what to focus on from a strength training perspective, I would say the 2 most neglected areas of the body are absolutely necessary for you to concentrate on, and that is your core and your calves. Your calf muscles are the muscles that sit, they're kind of like the back, just above your ankle from the backside of your legs, those muscles, which tend to be, for men at least, the skinniest ones. And your core, of course, is your midsection. And what I mean by this is I'm not expecting you to be able to do 100 crunches and a bunch of calf raises. It's actually better for you to look at doing static hold exercises. So things like the plank and side plank for your core, however you want to do them, full arm, on your forearms, on a medicine ball, whatever you want. You can go on YouTube and see all sorts of creative ways of doing that. So planks are great. If you're able to hold it for a minute, that's wonderful. Push to 2 if you can. That's quite impressive if you can do that. No need to add weights, because I think that weights tend to get people to get out of the required position in order to say that they're holding it for X amount of time. So just your body weight is fine. Same thing with calf raises. I would say try and go up on your calves and hold for as long as you can. If that starts to get easy, do one leg at a time. One leg is tough, man. You have no idea. But calves are important for your for crampons. When we're doing crampons, it's all about the calves and all about flexibility in the ankles. So if you have those, you're going to spare yourself a lot of soreness after our first day of training. I remember the first day I went training on crampons, and I had to sleep putting a pillow under my knees because of how sore my calves were. So very important to work on calves, work on core, and general body conditioning. So feel, like I said, whatever you feel is comfortable for you. If you're a swimmer, swim. If you're a runner, run. If you're a cycler, cycle. If you're if you're a walker, if you're a shopper, go walk in the mall and just keep doing your thing. But stay on your feet. Do what makes you feel whatever makes you feel strong, and whatever makes you feel fit. But don't think I need to be a bodybuilder and come with 6 packs in order to do something like this. You don't, and most people don't. Not even our guides. Our guide, and you'll meet them, so you'll see every shape and every size. You've got like the skinniest of skinny guys, and then you've got guys who are a bit on the heavier side, and they're all epic climbers. The key thing is to have your core, your mind is in the right place. You're confident with yourself. And these little tips that I'm giving, Pilates, yoga, and isometric core and calf raises, so core exercises like the plank and raising your calves and holding it, these will take you that extra mile and prevent you from getting sore. And the core is so important. A lot of people neglect it, but it's so important to have core strength, not like bulk, but actual strength, because everything else in your body, if it gets sore, it's going to recover over a couple of days. It's like going to the gym for the first time. Your biceps get sore if you lift weights, and then they're going to recover over the next couple of days. But if your core is weak and you start to get lower back pain, that you will not recover from. That will get worse over time. So it's very important to really focus on that, because nothing sucks more than, day 2 on the Mont Blanc and you've got lower back pain and it's just not going away. That just really takes away from enjoying the experience. I hope that answers your question. Great. So I think I've gone through all the questions. I don't think there's anything left to answer, but if there is any question, just feel free to drop it in while I wrap up, and I'll try and get to it before I actually close. Just a quick one. We've got two trips that are still available for booking this season. We've got a trip happening on the 27th of August, and so end of August, but we'll be climbing inside the month of September, the Mont Blanc itself. And we've got another one happening on the 4th of September. It's very, very, we've only got three places on each, and they're super popular, so please don't wait. And for those of you who've actually joined us today, there's a €150 discount for you available. We will drop you an email with details of how to recover that. And for everybody else, if you have any questions at all at any point in time, please don't hesitate to reach out. We love the Mont Blanc. We love talking about it. We love talking about mountains. We love guiding. We love being a part of your experience. So if you're not sure about this, if you think that this is something you want to do, but maybe not right now, it's okay. We'll get you on that path to making this possible for you in the very near future. You'll be so surprised how fast we can go from listening to me doing this to actually sitting, at the Albert Premier hut and looking at the glaciers and watching the sun go down. It really is something very, very spectacular. So on that note, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be dropping you an email as soon as we shut with the video of this Q&A, and as well the promo code for our end of August and our beginning of September trips. See you soon and have a great one.